The last time conditions looked like this, most people felt something was wrong without being able to name it. That was 1928. What followed was not a correction. It was a restructuring of the entire monetary order. Bank failures, institutional collapse, a world war, and finally a new architecture built from the rubble of the old one at Bretton Woods in 1944. The people who understood what was happening before it resolved were in a different position than those who did not. The pattern is not random. It runs on structural pressures that recur. In 1997, two historians published a book called The Fourth Turning. Their argument was simple and uncomfortable. History does not move in a straight line. It moves in cycles of roughly 80 years, the length of a long human lifetime, and each cycle follows the same 4 phases. History moves in 4 phases: institutional confidence, cultural awakening, slow unraveling, and then a crisis, the fourth turning. The old order breaks down. Something new must be built in its place. It is not comfortable. It is not optional. Every cycle ends in a fourth turning. The last one ran from 1929 to 1945. The 1920s produced a decade of credit expansion, asset price inflation, and apparent prosperity built on a monetary architecture that could not sustain itself. Stock prices detached from underlying values, wealth concentrated at the top, fractional reserve lending, money supply expansion, the Cantillon effect, the way newly created money reaches insiders first, inflating the assets they already own, all of it running in exactly the same way, at exactly the same stage of the prior cycle. In 1929, the architecture gave way. What followed was not a recession. It was a decade of institutional failure. Bank runs, deflation, unemployment, political upheaval across the developed world. The resolution came in 1944. 44 nations gathered at Bretton Woods and built a new monetary architecture from the rubble of the old one. That is what fourth turnings produce, not just recessions, reconstructions. The strongest critique of cycle theory is that it finds patterns where none exist. Every era feels like a turning point to those inside it. The 80-year cadence is selection bias dressed as social science. This is a fair criticism. The framework is not a precise predictive tool. What is harder to dismiss is when two independent analytical traditions working from completely different evidence arrive at the same diagnosis. Ray Dalio spent 30 years studying the rise and fall of reserve currencies. His framework tracks the rise and fall of empires through debt, debasement, and decline, not through generations, but through balance sheets. It looks nothing like the generational cycle theory. Both arrive at the same place. Both identify the present moment as the late stage of a cycle that has resolved through structural transformation every previous time. When two unrelated frameworks converge on the same diagnosis, the convergence is worth paying attention to, not because either is definitive, because the agreement narrows the space of plausible interpretations. The current fourth turning, which most historians of the framework date to around 2008, has produced exactly what the pattern predicts: institutional trust at historic lows, wealth concentration at levels not seen since the 1920s, a monetary architecture under strain from debt expansion, asset price inflation, and the quiet erosion of purchasing power. The 2008 financial crisis was the opening of this turning. It was absorbed at the cost of a permanent expansion of the money supply and a transfer of fragility from the banking system to the government's own balance sheet. The instability did not disappear. It moved. The turning did not resolve. It continued. These mechanisms do not produce gradual, manageable decline. They produce periods of apparent stability followed by sudden structural resolution. Always have, every cycle. Fourth turnings have not historically resolved through incremental reform. They have resolved through the destruction of what no longer works and the construction of what replaces it. Whether that pattern holds this time is something that time will tell. But knowing the pattern exists is different from not knowing it. This is the Cantillon letter. Monetary truth. Understand it first. Subscribe and visit us at cantillonletter.substack.com.